Weatherbell Analytics, meteorologist Joe Basari. Check it out. I have Skittlepox. Ever see that commercial? All right, Saturday summary. I may be putting this on YouTube too because this is going to be a Saturday summary. Look, here's what's going on, folks. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is just, they have so many trees on the campus of North Carolina State University, I can't even see where the buildings are. I mean, I'm not going to say it's ridiculous, but they love their trees down here. But I'm watching the World Team Trials in wrestling, so that part of me is all fired up all the time. I mean, when you see guys and girls, we have women's wrestling, trying to get a spot on the world team, fires you up, all right? So I'm fired up, and the fire up comes into the Saturday summary, okay? So be patient and be kind. Now, a lot of precipitation across the central part of the nation. How do you like that, right? California also. Look, someone's got to keep reminding people that in 2012 and 13, we were told a new Dust Bowl is coming. And then when that got erased, we went to California with the perma-drought. And, of course, that's been erased. Now, there's always going to be dry and wet areas. So this is the area this summer that we will be listening to climate ambulance chasers. That's what they are. Come on, they call me a denier. Listen, a denier is a lot worse than a climate ambulance chaser. I mean, as far as what is trying to be portrayed. All right. So, in any case, oh my gosh, it's the worst drought ever, the heaviest rain ever. Oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. Okay, we're going to try to debunk that. Although during the week, AOC said that was just a big joke. Okay, all right. I don't think yelling fire in a crowded theater is a big joke, and I don't think scaring the daylights out of people. And a lot of people believed it. All right, we didn't believe her on the skeptic side, but I'm like, the people, mass extinction and all this other stuff starts going on. It's amazing. All right, so anyway, this is the European day 1 through 5 off the World Meteorological Center site with its 500 millibar field. And here's its 5,000 foot field. You see all that cold air in there. And then we get out here to the 6 to 10, and you see all the strong trough in the west and the ridge in the east. And so you're going to get about as cold as it can be at this time of the year in here versus about as warm as it could be at this time of the year in here. And that's why you see all the precipitation showing up. Now, this is a 6 to 10 on the European. It's 5,000 foot temperatures, all right? Now, I want you to notice that the warm and cold are pretty, I don't know. All right, this tips the balance more warm than cold, okay? So we see that. However, when we look at the U.S. model, you notice how it gets rid of the colder air, right? See, the European is colder than the U.S. model. The U.S. model is spreading all this warmth through Canada, hooking it up in here, right? And you see the European is a little bit colder. What happens with time is the U.S. model gets rid of cold air. This was a classic run of the GFS this morning. The 5-day mean over the eastern part of the United States had 500 millibars. It was colder than normal, all right? We get down to 5,000 feet, and we see, there's no cold air anywhere, or cool air. You got a trough, you got a buckland. Where's the cool air go? Well, at 5,000 feet, it goes out here. Now, I want you to watch this because this is amazing. Here we are at 5,000 foot temperatures, that cold, all right? And yet, look at how warm the model thinks the surface is. Again, look at this. There's no cold air to be found by the time you get to the 11 to 16-day period. Now, the 11 to 16-day period is going to be cold in here, all right? You watch. Still be warm in the southeast, but the center of the cold will be right over where it's raining the most over the next 15 days. It's going to shift south and east a bit, right? But in the 11 to 16, this model says there's nothing going on. Now, I want you to look at this. This was the ensemble forecast and the GFS forecast for day 10 through 15 10 days ago. Day 10 through 15 is now day 1 through 5, and it now looks like, whoa, a lot colder. All right, you see how that turned out. So what happened, right? This actually did not do too bad, all right, trying to portray this. But what is actually going on is much, much colder in here. So it gets rid of it. And when it gets rid of cold air, it leads to problems. For instance, in April, its forecast for May looked like this for the United States. Now we're 17 days through May, and we know it's essentially going to be warm here and cold over here. May so far looks like this. Look at that forecast and look at what's actually happened, right? In Europe, it's even worse. Widespread warm May forecasted in Europe, near normal. There's no cold to be found. No cold to be found. And here is what's actually happened. It's been one of the worst openings of May in Euro history as far as how cold it is. It's just ugly, all right? So anyway, you see what's going on. The model cannot see cold. Look at this. July, August, and September 2019 has the Arctic. The only place where it's below normal is right along the north coast here of Asia and North America. The rest of and they're the north coast of Antarctica. That's that continent down there. But look at this. It can't see any cold air anywhere. And this is because what happens is there's so much warmth up in here, and the model is so weak at handling the input in the tropics, it simply tries to cool what's up here at the expense of what's further south. And so it gets rid of all the cold air. You see what it's trying to do is balance the whole thing out and make things more reasonable. And what do we mean by reasonable? Well, it's usually not warm to the north and cold to the south. So this is a big feedback problem, right? Because when you look here at between 60 north, Greta's coming on after this, so get ready. All right, the climate part is coming. When you look at 60 north to 60 south, it's a pretty good balance over there. Okay, let's go to the next thing. You got to be careful when you say anything nowadays. So I'm not after Greta Thunberg. I'm after this statement, okay, the idea. It's 2019. I agree with that. It is now 2019. And you can read about this on the Patriot Post, there is shock therapy being used by the other side because I believe they're getting desperate. I really do. I believe they have to be looking at what I'm about to show you and know that if they don't push this issue, there's a problem, okay, with what they're trying to accomplish, all right? So we got this climate breakdown, climate crisis, climate emergency, ecological breakdown, blah, 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 blah. All right? And then, of course, Bill Nye went on a profanity-laced tirade the other day. Now, I'm going to show you counters to this, and I'm not going to swear. I'm just going to simply show you the counters, and you can go look for yourself. First of all, to allay the fears of this Greta and all you guys on the other side, okay? Global deaths from climate and weather are just plummeting, okay, in the fossil fuel era. Now, that's not from, some right-wing think tank. It's from an international database, all right? Life expectancy is soared in the CO2 era, okay? The true hockey sticks are personal GDP and life expectancy, all right, which is shown here. Come on. How is that a crisis? There are more people on the planet living longer, right? Climate deaths are going down. Look at prosperity. Prosperity is going up and poverty is going down. Now you say, well, Joe, check out the increase in CO2. And okay, I see the increase in CO2, but I guess I'm from the camp of Dr. Will Happer, who has stated that we are probably pulling out of a CO2 drought, and that CO2 actually leads to more plants being grown and more food. I'm going to show you that relationship in a moment. But the first thing I want to do is throw on this relationship between CO2 and temperature, if I can find it over here, which is interesting. Why can't? Oh, there it is. Okay. Every once in a while, I forgot to put it on initially. All right, so Dr. Happer's argument is if you look at the purple, which is CO2, and you look at temperatures, I don't know. Maybe you could see a link. I can't see the link. Okay, so we're always looking for the missing link. Now, there is an uptick here and a little bit of uptick in the temperature. But you see, the Earth is actually quite cool. Now, on average, there's been, and you see, the Earth gets warm. The Earth gets warm like this, and you see a bump in CO2. All right, so it's very interesting how this works. It's all over the place. There are times when there's a lot of CO2 and it's very cold, but then look what happens after the CO2 spike. It does warm up some, right? But it's a lag, a big lag, right? And so the direct relationship that's being portrayed is not there. Now, we see it going down here, and yet it warms up. I mean, it doesn't look like there's any relationship there, right? I mean, if you really look at it, I believe there is a closer relationship between the price of postage stamps and the global temperature. Here it is. There's the price of postal stamps going up. There's the global temperature, and there is CO2. All right. So which is a greater link? So we quit looking at the mail, or demand that the postal service take down the price of stamps. Come on. All right. So here's from Dr. Willie Soon, this study, the total column of water vapor versus total solar irradiance, which is a nice term, to put it very simply, the power of the sun. Okay, and you can see what happens is when solar irradiance goes up, right? There's more water vapor in the air. Now, why would that be? Well, there's more evaporation from the ocean surfaces. The oceans also warm up, so you get more water vapor in the air, right? And the temperature follows. Now, the reason the temperature does that is because there's a linkage between water vapor and temperature. There is not linkage. Let's put it this way. Look, I'll give you guys on the other side, some credit over here and say, okay, you believe there's linkage between CO2 and temperature. But here's the geological record. All right, I'm showing you what total solar irradiance is doing with temperature. How in the world is CO2 here responsible for temperature, and yet we can't see what's going on with the sun? I mean, that should be intuitive, right? Am I missing something? I'm down here in Raleigh, the sun's out, all us northerners are getting sunburned, right? So the power of the sun is very important in climate. I would say much more important than the increase of 1 molecule of CO2 out of every 10,000 molecules of air over a 100-year period. Now, here's the other thing for Bill and Greta and everybody on the other side of the issue. This is the warming between 2006 and 2017. It's not, I mean, there's some, but it's not where people are living. It's in the Arctic regions. Now, why would that be? Well, when we look at the increase in water vapor, right? Oh my goodness, look at this in the tropics and all down here. It's relatively minor up here, but it makes a bigger difference. You see what happens? Look, at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the atmosphere, saturated, can only hold 0.12 grams per kilogram of water, and its condensation process take over. At minus 30, it's 0.21. So if you have a slight increase in water vapor, and we're talking, there's a gram or two here, right? There's a slight increase in water vapor. It's going to make a bigger difference where the temperature's low. I want you to look here, and let's look back. Look where the greatest warming is occurring in the Arctic, right? Well, let me get that back there. So you don't see it. And why is that? Because if you understand the nature of heat, the warmer it is, the tougher it is to make it even warmer, right? Because it's so far away from the average that the atmosphere naturally tries to pull it back. It's called Le Chatelier's principle. There's always a search for a balance. And given the fact that we've looked at temperatures all over the place and the cyclical nature, the Earth is trying to find a balance that it can't get. And so we as men are observing it over the last 30, 40, 50 years ago. Oh, it's CO2, right? That's like a 6-second snapshot in an 80-year-old guy's life, right? So you got to understand, I guess what I'm trying to do is defend the skeptics. Why would we be skeptical? Why would we, why would we counter someone like Bill Nye who's done a lot for science? I mean, people don't understand. I don't think Bill Nye likes me at all, but I actually like him because the total path of his journey has been he's done a lot. He's brought a lot of people to science. But I don't see how you have to not look at the other side of the issue and start getting swearing about it. I don't get that. Again, I come from a different perspective, so perhaps I'm wrong about it. But I'd like to see people try to. How do you deny that link or deny what I just showed you? Now look. Again, there's those mixing ratios. I'm wondering, you guys even look at mixing ratios? We don't have CO2 to temperature mixing ratios. We have water vapor. Water vapor is the number one greenhouse gas. It's responsible for 95% of what goes on. Now, that leaves some room for CO2, okay? But you know what? You're not having an ecological disaster. The earth is getting greener. Population's going up, food's going up. Maybe if you stop and think about it, and of course this in this day and age, people don't like people bringing things up about intelligent design and all this. I believe it, okay? That's me. You don't have to believe it. But you ever think that with plants using CO2, right, to make basically help out with oxygen, right, that CO2 that is increasing in the atmosphere is increasing in a way that we are going to have a better balance between animal and plant life. Because animals, human beings, exhale 100 times more CO2 than they inhale. But then again, you see the earth greening. So maybe there's some kind of level that is primed for life on the planet that is higher than where we are now, and we're simply moving toward that. I don't know. I have my opinion as to why that's occurring, and it has to do with matters that are not directly weather related. Of course, when you start talking about, belief in a higher power and this, you're anti-science. I had a guy, a very dear priest friend of mine once say to me, science is a search for why, religion is a search for who. Find the who, you'll see the why. Find the why, it'll point at the who. So I used to listen to The Who all the time. Love Rain on Me is one of the greatest songs ever. All right, well, this is spun out of control. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry. Then again, you're seeing my face, so that's enough of offense, right? Look, I listen, no matter what side of the issue you're on, all right? Don't think we need to swear. Think we need to look at it objectively. And above all, we need to enjoy the weather and climate because it's the only weather and climate we've got.